Welcome once again to Little By Them, my East Coast mainline depiction in 00 gauge. Now, in this presentation I'm going to be discussing various types of motors and gearboxes. I've fitted them into many locomotives, and most of what you'll see, the locos you'll see in this presentation, I've made. Some, the drives, the motors, the gearboxes, have great merit. Others perhaps less so. Anyway, I'll let you decide. If we are interrupted by the odd real train, it's because the East Coast Main Line is just over there, so we get real train sounds as well as the model ones. This is the way we used to do things years and years ago. In fact, I built this almost 50 years ago. It's an old Wills A2 kit on top of a modified Triumph Britannia chassis. New wheels, Romford, Jepson valve gear and the original Triumph XO4 motor. These are really everlasting, and some of them in the early days were used in some of Pendon's locomotives. The XO4 motor with its 3-pole armature spawned a whole host of clones fitted with 5-pole armatures. Now, in this locomotive, a scratch-built B17, the work of Ray Lightfoot, it's fitted with an MW005 and Romford gears. Still, after all these years, a very fine performer. Forty-odd years ago, a chap called Bernard Jepson in the Lichfield Club took XO4s and fitted a bespoke 5-pole armature to them, the Jepson motor, and I've fitted this inside my scratch-built K4, built in 1982. Much smoother than the original XO4. Indeed, a very fine motor, certainly for its day. I built this in 1976, which makes it, well over 40 years old. It's built from a Jameson hand-cut kit, which I had made by Eaton's 60508, and this too has a Jepson motor in this A21. The idea of the open-framed 5-pole motor was taken further in the likes of the D11 and the D13. In fact, this scratch-built K2 mechanism from 40-odd years ago has a D11 and Romford gears, a very fine combination for its day, and a very sweet runner, still going strong. This is a model built mainly by Rob Kinsey. Now here, though we still have a straight gear drive, we have a Mashima can motor, and the can motors tend to be smoother and quieter than the open frame ones. Here's a complete 9F with exactly the same drive mechanism as in the one shown just before. I don't know who built this one, but it didn't run very well when I got hold of it, as I hope you can see it does now. The D11 and D13 motors tended to run rather quickly, ideal I suppose in a fast locomotive, but actual smooth control was often difficult to achieve. It has been achieved in 60063, this southeastern finecast A3, by fitting a DJH motor gearbox combination. So you have the DJH box and the D13 motor. So you get a very powerful fast motor, but a much smoother performance. For years, the RTR B1, although a very fine body, had an awful split chassis. And in many cases, they did exactly that. They split. So what I've done on many occasions is fit a Comet replacement etched brass, etched nickel silver chassis. And here are two. 61022 has a Comet and Mashima combination seen in the previous picture. Now I know Mashimas are no longer available, but Comet now supply a Cannon motor, which is just as good. Now any gearbox that needs making, and this one did, it's always tricky to have them running absolutely dead quiet. And occasionally, as here, you'll be able to detect a slight noise. This one has the same sort of motor gearbox combination as in the A3 seen previously, although this B1 has the D11 motor, the slightly less powerful, smaller one, but more than adequate for a B1. And this one is absolutely smooth. This is a hybrid Bachmann Southeastern Finecast K3. The Bachmann chassis, the original chassis, was discarded and I made the Southeastern Finecast one to replace it. And the motor here is a slimline Mashima and Southeastern Finecast's own simple gear mount. It is very, very effective. This gear mount is probably still available from South Eastern Finecast, even though the company has now changed hands. Whether you can get an exact motor for this, I don't know, but there are certainly alternatives. London Road models do a simple etched fold together gear mount with, well, I think the gears are made by Markets. They're certainly much better than the original Romford ones. And this is a very simple drive, very quiet, very smooth. Years ago, in their Banbury days, DJH used to offer the service of a kit-built locomotive from their own range, and this is one. Now, this has a Sagami can motor and a straight drive. I think it really needs replacing. It's just a bit noisy. I will replace it. Who built this locomotive? I don't know. DJH obviously employed people to do it. Nicely built, but a bit of a racket. Cue a moment of smugness. Here's an identical DJH austerity, which I built. Quiet, isn't it? This one has a Comet Mashima combination. Much better. This 9F, a DJH 9F, which I've built, has a Comet gearbox and a Cannon motor, an excellent combination in this large freight locomotive. When you get them absolutely sweet, a Comet Mashima or Comet Cannon combination, alliteration there, is absolutely superb. Have a look, please, at this southeastern Finecast A4. Another very satisfactory drive is provided by branch lines. And this Princess Coronation, a DJH kit, has just such a combination with a Mashima motor. Now, as I say, I know Mashimas are no longer available, but there are alternatives. This is very powerful and very smooth. I bought this DJH A1 partly built, and I completed it and fitted another branch lines and Mashima combination. Perfectly adequate, suitable entirely for fast 8p express passenger locomotives. This Bachmann V2 originally had the nasty split chassis, and I've replaced it with Comet chassis, Comet frames, and in this case, a Mashima motor driving a Markets gearbox. Much, much sweeter. And I went a stage further and replaced the Bachmann body with a Graham King resin one, so it's a bit like Trigger's Broom. 3 new handles and 4 new heads, but a very fine runner. Sadly, a gearbox combination no longer available was made by Backwoods Miniatures. Ideal for small locomotives. With a small Mashima, this is an absolutely superb drive inside a Coopercraft B12-3. This is one of only 3 in the whole universe known to exist which actually works. Now this is an old East Coast Joint Models, latterly ABS, L1. Originally it had an open frame motor, but it sounded like a convention of lumberjacks. So to save it, I fitted a Mashima motor and a high-level gearbox. And high-level gearboxes also stands for high performance and high quality. DJH now make ready-made gearboxes, Originally they were fitted with Mashima motors, but now they have DJH's own. And once again, this is another old East Coast Joint Models L1, which I fitted in 1970 something with a 5-pole motor. It was very noisy. So some little time ago, I replaced that with the latest DJH AM10 motor gearbox combination. Much better. This is the latest Newcastle & Partners re-release of a K2, an absolutely superb kit and a superb runner with its ready-made DJH AM10 motor gearbox combination. This is now DJH's own motor. This is a Crownline J17, and once again I've chosen the DJH motor gearbox combination, the small one. They are absolutely super smooth. The same DJH motor combination can be fitted into much larger locomotives by employing the DJH AM9, which is the same style gearbox with a much larger motor. Perfectly adequate, a perfect runner in this Crownline A22, hauling a very heavy freight. The same combination, DJH, goes into this Crownline V2. Beautifully smooth, very powerful, a perfect combination. Yet another Southeastern Finecast A4, this time in charge of the Elizabethan. I think this proves entirely how good the latest DJH motor gearbox combination really is. It just drops into the frame. It's a dog to install. Speaking of motor gearbox combinations just dropping into the frames, I suppose the ultimate is the Portescap. I'm told that these now command very, very high prices on the second-hand market. They are very sweet, Very smooth, very powerful. They come in a combination of sizes. In the previous clip, you saw one driving an A3. In this one, it's driving a Craftsman A5. I didn't build this loco, but it certainly is a very smooth runner. Now, not everything in the garden is rosy. Here's a little engine's D16-3. I claim no responsibility for this. I didn't build it, but at least I got it to go. However, despite its Portescap gearbox, just listen to the racket. They really do whine, some of them. I think earplugs are called for. When you do get a Portescap gearbox that's quiet, they really are, in a way, the Rolls Royce, as illustrated here by this Milho Flying Pig Ivet 4MT. Super smooth performance. Ideal in a big locomotive as well. Big freight locomotive, like this yet another 9F. This has the Portescap in it. The difference between it and 92043 seen earlier is nothing in terms of performance, but this one is just a bit louder, hence my slight prejudice. Certainly for ease of fitting, you cannot beat the Portescap. And in this Southeastern Finecast A3, it provides perfect power, perfect controllability, and super smooth, quiet running. Another Portescap powered loco, in this case a DJH A1. I didn't build this one. It didn't work very well. This happens very often that I end up with kit-built locos which look very pretty but don't work. So half a day in the workshop, some bad language, and I get them working. But this has a Portescap and it's beautiful. Now I know I'm going to be accused of being partisan and of favouritism because I work closely with DJH. But really, my choice now, above all else, is the DJH motor combination, the DJH motor gearbox combination, as illustrated here by this modest K1 built from a DMR kit, hauling a really heavy, empty mineral train. And remember, this is the small DJH motor combo. It is absolutely super smooth. A perfect locomotive in my opinion. In conclusion, I'd like to thank Ian Rathbone for painting some of these locos, Jeff Haynes for painting some of these locos, and Tom Foster for weathering a couple. In fact, the moving footage of the J17 shows it weathered, but the still picture shows it immediately after I painted it. I'd also really like to thank, right from the bottom of my heart, my good chum, who has edited and made sense of this footage, which I hope you enjoy. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Chris Walsh.